So, very good afternoon to one and all present here with us. I, Monit Pal, on behalf of the Applied Mechanics Department of LD College of Engineering, Ahmedabad, am welcoming you all wholeheartedly in the second session of this day 4 of Earthquake Safe Design and Construction Practices Atal Training Program. I hope you all have enjoyed and learnt a lot from all the sessions till now. As you all know, this second session is being conducted to highlight the techno legal aspect for earthquake safety, along with land use planning and development regulations. And we all are really lucky and fortunate to have someone so suitable and perfect to discuss the same with us. It's my sheer pleasure and true felicity to invite Dr. Vatsal Patel, sir, who is an engineer and urban planner with over 33 years of academic and professional experience in structural engineering and urban planning. He holds academic degrees not only in engineering but also in urban planning, law, and management as well. Dr. Patel started his career with a structural engineering firm. He has worked with the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation too, joining as a town planning inspector when he took VRS after 28 years. He was the HOD in Town Development Department AMC and holding the post of Chief City Planner. After VRS, he is also technical consultant in Gujarat, which is the Real Estate Regulatory Authority in Gujarat. Dr. Patel is a member of various professional associations and has served on the sectional committee of Bureau of Indian Standard BIS for the development of National Building Code NBC. Sir has visited various countries such as USA, UK, Netherlands, Sri Lanka, China, Singapore, Kenya, and many more as an urban planner. Sir has published almost 80 papers on subjects like structural engineering, town planning, earthquake effects on buildings, and such more. Sir is a jury member for examination of students of SBSC, external examiner of ME students, visiting faculty in many colleges such as LDCE, training faculty at Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management, PhD thesis reviewer at CEPT University, member of Fee Regulatory Committee of Self-Finance Schools of Ahmedabad Zone. I must tell you, I can spare a whole day just sharing his introduction with all of you. But believe me, the next day, many new achievements will be added in the list. So, without wasting much time, I request the institute or a university in his own, our today's expert, Dr. Vatsal Patel, sir, to shower his words of wisdom on all of us. Thank you so much, sir. Over to you. I guess your microphone is muted, I guess.
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you very much uh, for nice introduction. I know that you all are very good academicians and you know better than me. But today I want to share with you some of practical aspects and as well as practical things with you. I'm sharing my presentation with you, and with the presentation I will share my experience with the field.
Sure, sir.
If any problem, can you just tell me? Is it visible?
Yes, visible.
Yeah, fine. Okay. My today's topic is techno-legal aspects for earthquake safety along with land use planning and development regulations. This is a very unique topic because we know that the earthquake majority, we always think that earthquake has directly relation with structural engineering and structural safety. But there are lots of things which is possible through urban planning for safety during the earthquake and after the earthquake, also the redevelopment. When we are talking about the earthquake, we must know the what is the disaster. Earthquake is one of the disaster. A disaster is an event that results in great harm, damage, or death, or serious difficulty. Another definition is the disaster is an adverse happening often occurring suddenly and unexpectedly. In particularly when we are talking about earthquake, the second definition is exactly define the earthquake. And the third one is the disaster is a suddenly calamitous event bringing great damage, loss and destructions a sudden and great misfortune or failure. See, all these definitions is just defining indirectly the earthquake. It is the people who matters the most. Without the people, we have no disaster. See, why we are telling this is these are the disaster, because it is directly related to the life of the people. If there is no people, then there is no question of any disaster. And I just give you one small thing about the disaster, but the basically two type of disasters are there. One is the natural disaster and another is the by the human causes. And the earthquake is a sudden occurrence and it is the disaster, and we can consider it is a natural disaster. Earthquake is not a man-made disaster normally. The natural disasters, tsunami and this Gujarat earthquake, hurricane, Australian bushfire is also considered to be a natural disaster. But sometimes we think that some disasters are because of result of our abuse of the nature. Drought, flood, these are considered to be a natural disaster, but the result of this is because of mishandling of the things. This is really a man-made disaster. Bhopal gas tragedy, Ukraine nuclear accident, fire incident at California. Estimates suggest that by 2050, urban population exposed to cyclones will increase 30 million to 680 million, while exposure to major earthquake will increase from 370 million to 870 million. This is World Bank report of 2013. And up to 90% of the people in urban areas in low income countries live in unsafe exposed housing. See, when earthquake took place, it directly affects the human life. What we learn from this type of disaster? First of all, we learn that the public regulations, that enforcing safety enhancing regulations, including building codes and planning rules, which is my today's topic basically. Resilience infrastructure development, earthquake resistance infrastructure development is required. Adequate service provisions, the provisions and maintenance of electricity, water supply, drainage system in urban environments can reduce the flood risk, but also increase the vested interest of the protecting assets. Effects risk governance. See, when this type of earthquake or such disaster took place, the role of government is very important. And lots of things we learn from the Gujarat earthquake that I will show you in my further slides. Case study of Gujarat, 2001 earthquake. It's known as the Bhuj earthquake also because it is near the Bhuj. Unfortunately, it was the 26th January and 52nd Republic Day. And in the morning, 8:46 a.m. Indian Standard, it took place. See, this is the exact time where we all gather for flag hosting. Because of this flag hosting, lots of schools were open and lots of students died due to the earthquake. More than 800 students died in Gujarat earthquake. The epicenter was 9 kilometers southwest of the village Chhabri in Bachau Taluka, but it's in Kutch district of Gujarat. The intraplate earthquake, its Richter scale varies. Different organizations claim that from 6.7 to 7.7, but normally now we know that it is considered to be a 7.7 Richter scale earthquake. People, more than 30,000 people killed and 1.67 lakhs people injured and 2,15,000 houses destroyed. This is the houses figure. See, I'm talking about the houses. I'm not talking about the non-residential buildings. More than 1 lakh non-residential buildings were also collapsed, but unfortunately that was the holy day. So lots of buildings which are collapsed, non-residential buildings, that calamity was not took place because of the whole day. because of that day, the 26th January. Damaged nearly 9,28,000 houses. See the great tragedy. After the earthquake, Gujarat government suddenly came into the actions, and lots of techno-legal reforms took place in the Gujarat. See, before the scenario of Gujarat, before the earthquake and after the earthquake is quite different, quite different. We are just today we are talking about what was the procedure and what was the steps taken by the Gujarat government, and that will ultimately tell us that what type of good quality of construction as well as good quality of urban planning took place in Gujarat. And that's why now Gujarat is considered to be one of the most developing state in the country. I will give you few examples in my next slides. Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority was established and registered as a society immediately within a week, within 10 days. Gujarat government established a Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority. And after the passage of Gujarat State Disaster Management Act in 2003, the society constituted earlier as GSDMA was dissolved under the section 49 of the act, and now it is the statutory authority under subsections 1 of the section 6 came into existence in effect from 1st September 2003. See, after the establishment of this Gujarat State Disaster, Gujarat was the first state for this type of establishing the disaster authority, and on the basis of this state disaster authority, central government established a national level disaster management authority in 2005. And subsequently, when we studied that why these houses were damaged and why this much calamity took place, and we found that it is because of the lack of engineering expertise, or because of the engineers were not performing up to mark, and that's why introduction of Gujarat Professional Civil Engineers Act was took place in 2008. See, when you all know that in the United States you have to clear the PE exam, Professional Engineers exam, before you start your career or before you start your work. Whether in whichever university you clear it, but if you want to start as a professional civil engineer, you have to clear the PE exam in United States. The same way in Gujarat Professional Civil Engineers Act took place in 2008, and now it will be going to implement in short time. Dr. A.S. Arya, the great person, the great engineer, and his team suggested series of technical legal reform. He was the advisor to Gujarat government at the time of earthquake. Also, he was the advisor to the central government also. But he stayed here in Gujarat for at least more than 2 months, and he made lots of suggestions and lots of improvement into the techno-legal regime of the Gujarat as far as the safe houses is concerned, safe building is concerned. Importantly, within a month, first, the development control regulations reforming GDCR took place, and the structural safety related notifications came out from the Gujarat government with the help of Dr. Arya. So what were the reforming GDCR or General Development Control Regulations during that time? That I will share with you. Introduction, clear role and responsibility of each professional. See, today also after these 20 years, lots of cases are pending in High Court and lower court for finalizing who was the responsible for collapse of that particular building and who was the professional who is responsible for that. Today also court cannot able to find out or can give the judgment related to the responsibility of professionals, because before earthquake our regulations were not that much clear that who is responsible for what. But after this reform, the first they clear the roles and responsibility of each professionals. When I'm talking about the professionals related to building, first of all we consider that the architects, for what purpose architects is responsible, for what purpose structural engineer is responsible, for what purpose site engineer is responsible. These all responsibilities is clear cut mentioned in the new GDCR, the book which I showed in my previous slide. Then, very importantly, the agreement between architects and builder, structural engineer with builder, and site engineer with builder. See, before the earthquake, they just signed the forms. To just signing the forms is not sufficient in legal language. That's why they draft the agreement between architects and builder. In that agreement, builder architects is clear cut agree for the work which builder is assigning you and taking the responsibility as per the GDCR. This agreement is on the basis of that roles and responsibility. The same way structural engineer is also giving his confirmation, and the same way site engineer is also giving that confirmation to the builder, and builder is giving confirmation to them also by inviting them. This type of bilateral agreement between these professionals and builder is now prevailing in Gujarat. Very important. When there is a question of any legal issues, you can produce this agreement between two parties. Other thing is, if architects want to leave the building, leave his service, or structural engineer wants to leave his service, or site engineer wants to leave his service, then officially they have to give their resignation to the local government, and immediately local government giving notice to the builder or developer that this your professional is had given the resign, so kindly stop the work at site. So without the appointment of new professional, developer cannot continue with the construction at site. So that much hold. Originally, builder himself can change any architect or structural engineer or site engineer if he is not giving the detail or he is not obeying his order. But now the professional is more stronger as far as development is concerned, as far as real estate is concerned, as far as new building is concerned. Suppose developer wants to relieve any architects or want to discontinue the service of any architect, structural engineer or site engineer, then it is compulsory for him to take the resignation from that professional. It is not so that he is just relieve them haphazardly and appoint new structural engineer without getting the resignation of existing structural engineer or architect or site engineer. One cannot appoint the another structural engineer or architect or the site engineer. This is very important, and this is very clear as far as this after the earthquake scenario is concerned. And that's why suppose in future such type of situations occur, then there is a clear cut roles and responsibility of architect, structural engineer and site engineers. Appointment of structural engineers is mandatory for any constructions. Firstly, they told that immediately that for any construction, structural engineers appointment is mandatory. But after 6 months, they amended the thing. And for the certain type of addition alterations for small buildings, it is not required to appoint basically a structural engineer, but a civil engineer or architects can work for that particular small buildings. But before that, it was not clear that structural engineers are required. So many times only architects or the normal engineer can give his service as a structural engineer or give the structural design for that particular building. And this was one of the reasons that during the earthquake, lots of buildings collapsed. Standard detail from structural engineers. Structural engineer should have submit the structural standard details to the authority when they apply for the building approval with the local authority. Strict implementation of IS code for earthquake resistant structures. See, before that they just give that okay, we are following the IS code, but no, now it is compulsory for them to mention each and every clause for loading, for detailing. Each and every IS code is required to be mentioned in their agreement that I am going to design this building by using these codes and National Buildings Code, prevailing latest National Building Code. So it is now compulsory for the professionals to design and follow the latest earthquake related codes. The another reforms in the GDCR was soil test report mandatory for approval of any construction. Initially, they said that the soil test report is compulsory for any construction, but then after lots of presentations from all over the Gujarat to the government, then government relaxed it and they now decide that okay, for addition alterations in the building, or if you want to construct a floor above existing floor, then there is no need for soil test report, but you have to submit a soil test report, or you have to mention the soil test report about 500 square meter or 500 meter radius within your premises if it is addition alterations. And if it is your plot size is less than 500 square meter, then also it is not compulsory to take soil test report of that particular site. But within the 500 square meter area, if any soil test available, then you can submit the same soil test report to the authority. And authority is maintaining each and every record of each and every soil test report, the buildings which they approve. Very important. Before earthquake, you didn't get any record of soil test of that particular area, but now at least you get about 300-400 soil test report in the authority, particularly in Ahmedabad, in particular zone. Submission of detailed structural drawings mandatory at the time of building plan approval. See, initially they told that okay, at first time when you apply for the building plan approval, it is required to be submit the detailed structural drawings. But there are lots of practical problem occurred at that time during because of this type of implementation. That first of all, the planning exactly not fixed, because when they are applying to the local government also intervening in the planning, like staircase width, like location of staircase, passage width, these type of changes local government suggest to the developer, and accordingly developer have to change the planning. So if once the planning is changed, then the entire structural design and all drawings is waste, and you have to redraw the entire thing. So duplication of structural detailing and drawings and analysis took place. So they decide that okay, don't give the building plan approval don't give the structural detailed drawings at the time of approval. Another major problem is developer was not ready to give 70-80% of their fees to the structural engineer, because once the structural drawings are ready and submitted, then only the execution is pending. So 70% of the work of structural engineer is over. But people or developer or builders were not ready to give the fees to structural engineer for the full project. The another important point is when they are submitting the structural drawings to the or details to the local authority, and in that particular notification it was mentioned that these drawings will be scrutinized by the local authority engineers. We all know that the engineers who is working in the local authority, they are not competent to check the structural drawings. They are competent to check the drawings as per bylaws. They are not structural engineers. So it is difficult for them to wait or to check the structural drawing and structural details. That's why the associations of the employees of the local government, they also take their place, that okay, we are just custodian, we just take the structural drawing, but we are not able to check it. So ultimately then government decide that okay, if local government engineers are not going to check it, then let us introduce third party structural engineer who will going to check it. When third party structural engineer was introduced, then again who is going to give the fees for third party? See, I'm not talking about skyscrapers. I'm not talking about multi-story buildings, who is about 10 story or who is about 30 meter or something like that. I'm talking about small buildings. In small buildings, it is very difficult to appoint two structural engineer. One is main structural engineer and then third party structural engineer, because the structural engineer's fees is also one of the criteria when such type of small buildings is there. So government decided that okay, there is no question of third party, but the structural engineer, licensed structural engineer with the local government, will going to sign the drawings and will take the responsibility of the entire structures and the supervision or periodical supervision at the time of execution at the site. This why I am telling you this much details, because this was the entire process took place during the from in 2001 up to the December. From January it was the earthquake, and till the December these all the process were continue, and ultimately they decided that the original structural licensed structural engineer is responsible for this. Again, one thing is very important. The detailed structural drawings were necessary to be submitted, but not at the time of building plan approval, but at the time of application of the building use permission. So when the entire structure is complete and as-built drawing of structural drawing, it is required to be submitted in two sets to the local government. Because in earthquake, when we tried to find out what was the structural drawing or structural detail of these collapse buildings, we were not able to find out any structural drawing from the builder or the structural engineer, because they just give different excuses. Like it is old building, so we don't have it. It was now destroyed because of XYZ reason. Because we are now not maintaining it because my project is already over and people is leaving that. All these type of excuses we are taking, and we were not able to find out whether the drawings, whether the structural design was correct or not. And that's why after this earthquake, we decide that there is at least one or two sets of entire building structural drawing with the local authority as a custodian. So in future, you want to refer the drawing of existing structures, you can easily approach to the local government and you get the structural drawings detail for any investigation. Maintenance clause were added into GDCR. Very important. So many buildings, more than 35, 40 years old buildings were collapsed at that time. And because of the similar type of buildings, both the buildings are the same as it is, but one block collapsed and another was not collapsed. And this is only because of the lack of maintenance of that clause, that particular buildings. See, nowadays you also observe that when anybody is making interior design of few lakhs, from 5 lakhs to 50 lakhs in his own apartment or flat, but he is not giving 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees maintenance to the society or association. Every day you are parking your four-wheeler or two-wheeler in the street or in the parking area in the hollow plinth, and every day you see that now column is giving the cracks, now GT is leaking in the parking area, now water is leaking in the parking area. You can see lots of vegetarian things grown in the pipeline. All such things visually you can see, but you ignore. People ignore. These are the reasons they deteriorate the structure of the buildings, and because of the deterioration of these buildings during the earthquake, lots of buildings collapse. Because of the lack of maintenance, important is who is responsible for maintaining the building. At that time, police arrested the structural engineer and the developer, who is about 70 years old, 75 years old. 30 years before, 35 years before they designed the buildings, 35 years before the developer developed the building as a developer, and they just arrested that time. It means, is it the responsibility of developer or structural engineer to maintain the building till he or she may be alive? No, it is not so. It is not. It should not be so. That's why the importance is any structure, it is required to be maintained. And after this GDCR, this maintenance clause was added into the GDCR. And this is the responsibility of the user, not the owner. Remember that occupier is the responsible. Suppose one person is giving his premises on rent, then the people who is occupying that structure or that building, he is responsible for maintenance of that building. and structural audit report is compulsory first time after 5 years from BU and BU permission, and subsequently every 3 years it is required to give structural audit report to the local government. If you are failed to give this type of audit report to the local government, then obviously the developer or the structural engineer will not be responsible for your structure after 5 years, because you are not maintaining your building, and one day probably it may collapse because of lots of leakages. Because of nowadays you find that lots of people are using that core cutting machines. They are so fast that within 5 minutes they can core to 4-5 drills. And at that time they are not thinking about what will be the happen if I'm making this core cutting because of I want to pass my air conditioning line or any firefighting line or anything. They least bothered for consulting the structural engineer for making this core cutting. And because of this type of core cutting in the important structural elements like column and beams or column beam junctions, if they make such type of core cutting, then immediately during the earthquake, it will be the first part that will be start collapsing, or it will start damaging the entire structure. So such type of structural audit is compulsory after this GDCR. And now I tell you that in Gujarat it is compulsory for each and every occupier to maintain their own structure or their own building. And it is the provision in GDCR. Hardly the people, even the people who is just attending this seminar all from Gujarat, they probably may not knowing this type of clause in the GDCR. Prescribed details of structural audit report. See, structural audit report should not be the one-page report that okay, I found it safe and serviceable things. It is not one-page detail. It is a detailed report required. That draft is given in GDCR page. Probably it is the form number 11. In each and everything is mentioned. So structural engineer should give that structural audit report in the prescribed form. Not whatever one page or A4 size certificate. It will not serve the purpose. This was just related to GDCR and the legal consequences took place into Gujarat. I just want to tell you that after these changes in GDCR, we almost in Gujarat 90% of the structures are particularly designed as per the IS code probably and get approval from the local government. I suppose that whatever the approval they are taking from the local government, then it is the responsibility of particular licensed structural engineer for the implementing the relevant Indian standard codes and NBC for the structural design of his structure. At the same time, 90% of the buildings also get the building use permission. So once they get the building use permission, then it is the responsibility of the occupier that they have to maintain their building first 5 years and then after every 3 years. So with this type of major reform in the GDCR, now I feel that the next buildings which are under construction or construct during these 20 years, they are probably more safer than previous buildings. The same way, not only the structural design, but the Town Planning Act, Gujarat Town Planning Act, DP and TP is used to improve the urban planning. See, urban planning is very important for the safe passage to during the such type of disaster. And when we are talking about the urban planning, when we are talking about the land use, the mixed land use is very, very difficult at the time of when we had this experience of Bhuj, that because of the narrow roads, it was difficult for giving the rescue operations after the earthquake, immediately after the earthquake, because lots of debris took place or lots of debris were there on the roads, and it is difficult to reach up to the injured people. So and the Bhuj was almost 90-85% collapsed. And how to redevelop such type of towns by using the Gujarat Town Planning and Urban Development Act that I want to share with you. putting reconstruction process in place. February 2001 to May 2001. See, immediately this reconstruction process start into Gujarat, preparing development plan for the entire city. Immediately they prepare in June 2001 they start the development plan preparing, and in December, within 6 months, they prepare the development plan in 2001, and they approve within the 6 months, and implementing of this development plan took place in January 2002. As far as this January 2002 detailed development plan start implementing, immediately they start town planning schemes. And between January 2002 to February 2003, see, every year, within 1 year, the entire Bhuj were divided into 8 town planning scheme, and all the 8 town planning scheme they started to prepare and implement it. And all the TP scheme were implemented early 2003 to late 2004. So from 2003 to 2004, the TP scheme where entire Bhuj was developed through the TP scheme mechanism, DPTP mechanism, and DPTP mechanism ultimately give the classic result of redevelopment of these things. I give you 2 examples, Bhuj and Ahmedabad. Both example I will show you with the Google map and other details. See, the total Bhuj, this is the Bhuj plan. Total Bhuj is divided into the 8 TP schemes. See, lots of small streets, because it's a walled city area, it's an old city, very old city. So all the streets were so narrow, it is very difficult during the earthquake, immediate after the earthquake, to reach to the needy people. See, before replanning the area, this is the TP scheme 8. See, this is not the entire Bhuj. I'm talking about only the TP scheme number 2. It's a very small area. And see, this in the small area, what are the white plots? They all destroyed. And what are the yellow plots? They were as it is, or they were just damaged. Red plots were the government plots. See, after replanning area, you can see that this is the small narrow streets and this is the 6 streets. You can see this. Bigger streets, organized plots. Existing layout and proposed layout of TP scheme number 8. You can see that there is no linkages in existing layout. There are lots of road, 6 to 9 meter wide road within the old walled city, and all the plots which were irregular were redistributed and will be regular. Access to each and every plot is very easy. See, in old city, very small, narrow, sometimes we find that only 1 meter, 1.2 meter streets to approach to the building, approach to the resident. Now here you get each and every plot, proper access. When I'm talking about ambulance can reach up to your house. This is considered to be a proper approach to the building. See, this is the before earthquake layout, and this is the after earthquake layout. See the roads, see the details, see the loops. In the ring road. Why ring road? Because we don't want to enter into the city for going from one place to another place, to avoid the traffic who wants to thorough passage. We avoid this, and even you can see this in this layout. It's the new layout. There is no thorough road introduced into the new layout. All road is loops. So if you want to go from north to south, it is not necessary that you should enter into the old walled city. You should use that ring road and go there. Otherwise, you will mess up in the city area. This was the conscious decision taken by the planners, that there is no thorough road allowed in old Bhuj city to avoid the traffic congestion in the city. See, this is 2002, just immediate after earthquake. See, lots of small things. There is no clear-cut roads 2005, when the entire TP scheme were implemented. See, small roads, new roads development, you can see into the layout. Even after my presentation, if you are interested, you just visit the Google and you find that how this city took place, redevelopment took place into the city. See, now in 2016, see the immediate, as per the TP scheme, new bigger road were took place and the new ring road was also built. See, this new ring road was also built in the Bhuj. And now I want to show you the Ahmedabad scenario. See, this is 2001 time of one of the area of Ahmedabad. These roads were proposed on by the development plan, by using the development plan DPTP mechanism, and then see, this is 2000. 2000, they are just farms and few development. On the right side you can see that they are these were the TP scheme area, these were the non-TP scheme area. And to be very precise, I tell you the land price of this area. Remember what I'm trying to give you. I'm basically Ahmedabadi. I always think about the money. When you are dealing with any land or when you are dealing with any real estate things, money is very important. When you implement such type of town planning schemes and everything, the land market increased, and because of this land market, land economy will going to improve, and this because of the land economy will going to improve, the entire city's economy will going to improve. So urban planning is also used for vibrant economy of your city. I give you this classic example of this area in Ahmedabad. In 2000, the land prices of this area was 200 rupees per square yard. 200 rupees per square yard. Then this TP scheme introduced. One by one, because this on right side you can see the main our SG highway, and on the left side this new TP scheme were introduced. Then you can see this in 2005. 2005, the land prices of this area were from 200 rupees in 2000. In 2005, the land prices were 1800 rupees. In 2005, 1800 rupees. Then this 2007, see this TP scheme were added. The entire area slowly and slowly covered under the town planning scheme. And see the infrastructure, see the road widths. This is 2010. This is 2011. Lots of green plot. Green plot, they are the gardens, the municipal gardens. Lots of pink plots. The pink plots where the plots where public utility or public amenity services can be took place. See, lots of green and pink pockets you can find into the TP scheme. These TP schemes is implemented. Now probably the people who is living in Ahmedabad, they probably visiting and using these roads. This 2013, the entire area start developing. See, new buildings take place. You can see this new development in the area. 2014, 2013, the land price of this area is 50,000 rupees. From 1800 rupees in 2005, in 2013, after 8 years, it is 50,000 rupees per square yard. This is 2014, 2015, 2016. 2016, the land prices were 1 lakh rupees per square yard in this area. 1 lakh rupees. So within 16 years, 200 rupees to 1 lakh rupees per square meter. You can think that because of the TP scheme, because of the infrastructure, because of the good land use, because of the good implementation of urban planning, what type of economy took place. 2016, lots of new buildings took place. And today in 2020, the land prices are 1.6 lakhs rupees per square yard. From 200 to in 16 years, it is 1.6 lakhs rupees per square yard. By this, because of this type of development, lots of economy improved as well as the safety and security took place. At the same time, lots of public utility and public plots are available to the authorities. So fire brigade, police stations, water and drainage pumping stations, all such type of physical infrastructures can also be possible by providing or by using this type of town planning and land use. Thank you, friends. This is my last slide. I don't want to add my slide as at the end, because this is not the end. This is the just continuous process going on since years and will be continuing for the next few years also. Next years also. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much. Now I request Chaitanya or the person to just start the question answer session for the same. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, sir. It was really an amazing and informative session. I hope all the attendees must have enjoyed the session and gained the skills about the project and the experience. So the session is open for any kind of question answers. So if you are having any kind of doubts, you can ask your questions, or you can put your questions in the chat box also.
Chat box, so you just listen the question and ask me.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I'll spell out the question for you.
Attendees can unmute their mic.
We want to ask.
Can unmute their mics now. So if you have any kind of doubts or questions, you can ask. Okay. I guess there are no such questions to be asked, Sanghvi sir. So
Hello, sir. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Mr. Deep Patel, I guess. Audible.
Yes, yes.
Please ask.
Yes. Sir, I want to ask about the nearby villages. In Ahmedabad, many small towns are around there. Then when city are expanding, then how can TP scheme are applied on that particular, because that towns are already there and their two conjunction are there. So how can that schemes are implemented there?
First thing, town planning scheme, when the boundary of urban development authority increase, then it is the responsibility of urban development authority to make the development plan of that particular area and then make the town planning scheme of that particular area, because development plan is macro level planning and town planning scheme is micro level planning. So when this type of development took place, just now there is a law in Gujarat that in any area where you want to develop the things, develop to make the without TP scheme you want development, then in the major cities it is required to give the 40% of your land to the government, and in medium scale towns it is required to give 25% of your land to the government for making the town planning schemes. So as soon as your village or your town will be the part of development plan, will be the part of the development authority, immediately they start making the town planning scheme of that particular area. So once the particular village is a part of this development authority, automatically development authority is start working on it.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deep.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please. Please.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah, continue.
Sir, I want to ask when implementing a new TP scheme or a expansion of particular green belt, which is the first sector that is affected? Either it is a commercial, housing, industrial, say transportation, which one?
Okay, it is not a question of affecting the things. Obviously, when this type of new TP scheme or new area added into the local government, automatically the economics of that area will going to change. And always remember that whatever the government or whatever the officer or whatever the person who is sitting on the chair is not responsible for any type of market or any type of things. So, they may be thinking that we are the boss and we can able to decide the things, but it is not so. Always market is governed by the demand and supply. It is economy. It is pure economics. If there is a demand for commercial activity, then obviously the commercial building took place. When there is a demand for a residential activity, automatically residential buildings will start growing in that particular area. So the sectors is not affected by making the TP scheme or making the things. The market will going to decide that what type of development will take place in that particular area. Like I tell, if you are in Ahmedabad, then I give you one example that the market of Western Ahmedabad for residential property and market for Eastern Ahmedabad for the residential property is different. The same price, you get slightly bigger house in Eastern Ahmedabad. The same price, you can get some lesser area in Western Ahmedabad. The same way, the South Ahmedabad, where the Vatva, Narol area is there, you get economical housing schemes very successful because lots of design of middle class and lower middle class there. So
Okay.
this is the way the development took place because of the market, not because of the what type of zoning you are doing or what type of things you are doing. Another example I want to give you, before 20 years, there were a CG road. It was a residential in Ahmedabad. CG road was a residential zone, but the entire CG road were developed for a commercial activity. So it was mass violation because of the demand, because of the things. You have to change. You have see, urban planner or government's role is to monitor the development, not to introduce development or not to try to give the entire different direction to the development.
Okay, right, sir. So it is more economics than say implementation.
Yes, it is the role of economy that they decide which type of development took place where, and the urban planner or the planners just make the monitoring of it.
Okay, right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any more question? Vasa sir, my one question is right now Gujarat government has changed the rules, and they are going to give the permissions for the 70-story building uh, in the metro cities of Gujarat. So then what type of problem you can identify for this guidelines?
See, yes, the fortunate part is the first time into such type of notifications. The total notification is of 16 pages. Out of 16 pages, 10 pages were for the structural design. First time. So government is very serious about the structural part of these skyscrapers.
Right.
And that notifications, these 10 pages where the contribution is your students Niyat give the contribution for that 10 pages. Chaitanya, your student.
Yeah.
Niyat gave these suggestions for these 10 pages.
Okay.
But to be very precise, I want to give you an answer is, see, nothing is a rocket science. Nothing is a rocket science. You can build such type of building easily and comfortably with taking the precautions and by using the National Building Code as per as the Indian standards. But one thing is very important: who will going to build it? Who will going to build it? The person who can able to sell it.
Right.
The person is, if not able to sell the things, then he will not going to build it. So
right.
It is not the question of, again I am telling you, this is just one type of facility given by the state government, that before this notification, if you want to build a 70-story building, then you have to go to the state government for special permission. Right. Now you will get the permission from local government. But this is one type of facility by the state government, ease of doing business. But you want to build, really you want to build it? If yes, then you will get the permission. And when you are going to build it, if you are able to sell it.
Right.
Because this
but my
there is a market for your product, then you are going to build it. Otherwise, you will not going to build it and invest huge amount in the structure.
Right. But my questions are like when suppose such kind of buildings are coming up. So my question is whether our existing infrastructure will support such kind of development, or
see, it is see, when you study certain things, certain development, even in New York you study, or even Barcelona you study, even you Singapore you study, even Hong Kong you study, you always think that there is no infrastructure from one day. Infrastructure putting in place from one day is not possible, and being a civil engineer we should understand that to provide a drainage and water supply for the entire density is not possible. Otherwise, before starting or using its optimum use, it will going to chalk up the things. Right? So there is no need to provide infrastructure from day one. Yes, you should be very conscious that if such type of development took place, then immediately you should have the phasing plan for providing the drainage, water supply, road infrastructure.
Right.
So that phasing plan is with government. Suppose government initially start to putting huge money into the infrastructure, and if because of the market there will no such development took place, then the entire money will going to waste. So always never think about existing infrastructure is supporting it or not, because today government is giving the permission, then at least the entire building will come after 4 years in complete use.
Right.
So we have these 4 years. Within these 4 years, we can able to check whether how many permissions is was given, in which area the maximum such type of development took place, and accordingly we make our development plan, and accordingly we make our infrastructure development plan in place.
Right.
So never think that when government is giving higher FSI or certain type of densification within the city, means immediately it will start chaosing the traffic, it will start chaosing the infrastructure. No, it is not so.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Right.
Now, in the same line of action, this is my last question in this line.
No problem.
You said that out of 16 page, 10 page is based on structural design part, right?
Yes.
And now you see, when we are going for the high rise, then you have to be very precise about the wind and earthquake effects on these buildings, right?
Of course.
Yeah. And now what is happening? You see, we are. My earlier question was infrastructure is supported or not. Now my question is whether our syllabus is supporting such kind of things. Like university right now is not offering any subject, right? Or the subject we are offering, they are in elective, right? So because of these subjects are very difficult, students are not selecting this subject, right? So now how can we, if a student is graduating from the engineering college and he is not knowing about the wind engineering or earthquake engineering, then how can he be able to handle or work in such kind of projects? Because you see, he must have a basic this is a capacity building process, I tell you. And in capacity building process, the civil engineer must know the basics. And then I think we know the ME structures are going to design such kind of things. But I think this is a very crucial.
Chaitanya.
Yeah.
Be very frank with you. I tell you that see, it is also again the demand and supply. If lots of such type of structural engineers is required by the field, then automatically students will select the subject, because students and students' parents are very smart and they select the subject under which they are going to be graduate and under which they will get the employment immediately.
I tell you,
it is not the responsibility of any faculty that they compulsory taught them certain things and teach them certain things. It is not like that. You should offer the entire menu to the students, and students will going to decide which dish they like to eat.
That's absolutely right. But when we are going for such kind of changes, then I think the civil engineer, like, do you believe that design of reinforced concrete should be an elective subject?
Of course, suppose I don't want to make my career into concrete, then why should I study the concrete?
So he must not know.
I don't like concrete, then it is not required to study the concrete. Let us be, I can study the concrete technology or something, concrete as a material. But I should not say a good or in-depth knowledge is required for the concrete. I can make my career as for a different, I may be the quantity surveyor engineer. Then quantity surveying subject, which is just 50% weightage in our syllabus, is the career for the students. In urban planning, we give 50% weightage, just 50% weightage. The urban planning is my career.
Yeah.
Right? So when, see, this is always debatable when we are deciding about our academic syllabus, that which subject is required to be a more weightage. But let me tell you frankly on this forum that now it is time for the students to give them wide choice. And accordingly, they will going to decide about their career. Suppose I don't like steel structures, or I'm not interested in steel structures, then why should I be tortured by teaching me one more subject?
Absolutely.
This is my personal opinion on the forum. and probably academicians are the right people to decide for the next generation or for the youth.
No, it is absolutely correct. The student must have the choice, but it shouldn't be like when he's a civil engineer, then he's going to come across the structures all the time, and the basic knowledge should be imparted, not the like.
Of course, lots of time. I also suggest my students that you should love your work. You should love your work, but you should not fall in love to your work.
Right. So, hello.
Yeah. Any more question, please?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, please.
So, sir, we can say that economics or say markets are in symbiotic relationship with the development, right? And,
Yes.
right. So, where there is a demand, we supply it in terms of developments or in terms of services. So, for that context, we can say that earthquake engineering now, that earthquake engineering field is in the highest rising phase currently.
Yes.
Right. So that is connecting the town planning, say, and the core structural or say earthquake engineering field.
I can't understand your final question. Pardon?
Hello.
Pardon? I missed
Please.
your last sentence.
So can we see that now earthquake engineering or say a core structural engineering field is in its highest rising phase?
Of course. Always see, civil engineering line and development is always a top priority in engineering, because in Hindi we say that जब तक mankind है या human है तब तक civil engineering है. My professor told me from first day when I entered into the engineering college.
Right, sir. Okay, sir, thank you.
Can you mute your microphone because it is disturbing all? Please.
See, one thing that I want to share with you, that nowadays, because of the lots of urbanization took place in India, more than 42% urbanization in India, and probably in next decade it will probably reach up to 50% urbanization in India. So urban population will going to increase. So urban housing will be in the demand, and urban densification will be one of the solution for accommodating such type of demand. When we are talking about the densification, immediately being a structural engineer, being a civil engineer, we should think about the earthquake engineering. We are going to provide earthquake resistant structures for the residents. It is not that any structure, any type of structures we just supply to the people, and people will going to live in such type of structures which are probably a dangerous structures as far as earthquake is concerned. So it is necessary that earthquake engineering is very important branch as far as new urbanization trend is concerned. So whoever the students just listening me, always remember that if you want to make your life easy and career, then always try to understand the earthquake engineering, try to understand the structural engineering in whatever field you are going. But if you want to be to make your career into the particular case, then it is always required to take a master's degree or something in particular specialization. But general knowledge is always necessary for the next coming few decades. Thank you. Any question?
One more question, that is regarding the RERA, because you are technical consultant at the RERA office. So I love to ask the question, and can you highlight certain points of the RERA which will be, I think this participant should know. And the second is yeah. Anything
within 2-3 minutes, I will describe that RERA, what is RERA and why it is there.
Yeah.
See, the RERA is an act, Real Estate Regulatory Act, by the central government, by the federal government. Remember this, by the central government, RERA is passed in the parliament, but the implementation authorities are states. So each and every state should have their own implementation authority, like Gujarat as Gujrera, Maharashtra as Maharera, Rajasthan as Rajrera, and Haryana as Harirera, and Madhya Pradesh as MP RERA. So each and every state has their own implementation authority. Why RERA, when RERA is implemented for what type of projects? When as a real estate developer, you want to sell your property or you want to sell your project, before selling, it is required to be registered with the Real Estate Regulatory Authority or project. And if your plot area is more than 500 square meter, and if the total unit within that within that plot is more than 8 unit, then it is compulsory for you to register with the RERA. If it and within the, in particularly Gujarat, if it is within the development area authority, then you have to register your project with the RERA, whether it is a residential, whether it is a mix, whether it is a plotting scheme. So remember, this is the limitations and this is the implementation area for the RERA. Why RERA is important? RERA is important for two things. One thing is the timely possession of the building. See, we all have this experience that builder is saying that in certain month, certain year, we will going to give you possession, but after 6 months they give the possession. Even after 1 month they give the possession. In Bombay and Noida, NCR, they give the possession even after 8-10 years of committed date. So there were no limit for their commitment. After this RERA, there is a commitment limit. So if builder is telling that he is giving you the possession in December 2022, then it is compulsory for the developer to give the possession in December 2022. So timely possession to the purchaser or the buyer is the prime concern of the RERA. And the second point is the quality. When we are even taking a small electronic gadget like mobile phone, also we thinking about the guarantee and warranty of 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, replaceable guarantee or all such type of guarantees. But when we are taking the number one main important investment of our life, we are putting, that is the residence for ourselves or working place for office for ourselves. In that case, there were no guarantee or warranty by the builder. So by this RERA regulatory or RERA Act, builder is giving 5 years guarantee for, I'm not talking the word warranty, I'm using the word guarantee for structural stability of that particular structure after giving the occupation of your structure. So up to the 5 years, if there is any structural defect in the structures, then structural engineer is then developer is responsible, and immediately repairing is free of cost. Repairing is required to be carried out by the developer. So RERA is for two purposes: timely possession and quality of work, and implemented into 3 places. If it is in the development area, it must be a more than 500 square meter plot, and it must be a more than 8 unit within that plot. Any further question?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and will it help? Like, is there any relation of RERA with the safe design or something?
Of course,
for 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, because when anybody is giving the guarantee for 5 years of his structure, suppose tomorrow the earthquake will come. Earthquake come tomorrow and the building collapse, then the person is easily going behind the bar, and immediately it is required to be rebuilt free of cost to the particular occupiers. Life loss is different thing. For that, criminal code is there. But as far as building is concerned, as far as structure is concerned, immediately he has to start working on that.
Right. Okay, and is it possible that because you see, when I purchase any 2 rupees glucose biscuit, I am knowing the content, what is there in the biscuit, right? but when I'm purchasing my house, I'm not knowing anything that what is the content. So do I get the structural drawings in future at any moment? Is it possible?
I request you all that kindly visit the RERA website, and on the RERA website you will find the lots of documents which were originally not shown by the developer to you. But as far as the structural drawing is concerned, as far as the structural detail is concerned, that you are not going to get before the BU permission, because once you get the BU permission of that house, as I already told in my presentation, that all the structural drawing set is given to the local authority in BU permission file. So you can get the set of that BU permission from the local government.
Okay.
Under the RTI Act and under the easily by paying the amount whatever decided by the authority.
Okay, fine. So now it is available, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Any more question, please, from the participants? Someone has raised the hand, and you may ask, please. I hope there is no question, and so we will complete the session here. And I request Vasant sir for the final comment, and then we'll close the session. Yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting me for such a important lecture. And probably this is not a purely technical, this is a techno-legal type of things, and hardly you find such type of people who knows technical part as well as the legal part. And I suggest if there is a students in this present in the seminar, then techno-legal branch is a very, very important branch. And if you want to make your career as a techno-legal person, then better you start doing law with college and start to work with a techno-legal consultant, and you can be a good lawyer for technical things. This is a very good branch. Every time we are thinking about structural engineering branch, construction management branch, sometimes we may think about the soil related branch, but this techno-legal branch is really a very bright branch, and it is in demand nowadays because particularly this type of combination is rarely available. All the best to all the students for their career, and thank you the faculties and the colleagues who attended this seminar and hearing me patiently. Thank you very much, Chaitanya. Thank you very much, the organizers.
Thank you very much, and it was really a wonderful session, and I think all the participants have gained the knowledge regarding a technological aspect. And as Dr. Vatsal Patel has mentioned that this is one of the emerging area in which you can make your career. So please encourage your students, make them aware about this technological aspect when they are graduating, and the students who are attending. You take this thing is very seriously, and I think it will helpful to you in future. I'm very much thankful to Dr. Vatsal Patel for sharing his expertise and for sharing his work. Actually, he has carried out a lot of work at the ground level, and therefore he is delivering lecture with the confidence. And it was really wonderful, sir. Thank you very much for your session and time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Monit?
Yeah. Monit, thank you very much for coordinating. Yeah. Monit, thank you very much for coordinating.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Vatsal sir, for sparing time from your busy schedule and accepting our invitation. All the attendees must have enjoyed the session and learned a lot from your experience, sir.